So let's get started with Doomer Citizen. So first things first is we're going to start, and just like Naz and I usually do with our spectrum pulses and scanner anomalies when we're looking at features and technology and locations and stuff, Tree Citizen refunds. Yeah, the Naz subreddit. Um, we like to start at the beginning. Oh, Blizzard in chat. Um, the uh, so back at the end of 2023, the last ISC of the year, Jared took a few minutes to talk about the 2024 forecast. And so we're going to listen to a particular quote that is what everybody should have been using to set expectations regarding, starting to set their expectations for this year. Um, and and before I continue, the other thing is, so there's this bit of there's Doomer Citizen is something we probably are going to make into two parts. The first part is going to be regarding 4.0 and it getting moved, which is what we're doing tonight. But then the second part, Naz has a really good, I guess it's a spreadsheet tracking all the things that were shown off at CitizenCon last year. And because there's been a lot of doom about they've released less than half of what they showed off at CitizenCon, and they said everything was going to be coming out in the next 12 months. Well, hold on, there's a different quote, and they said most, or a lot of things, which changes the math a lot. And B, a large number of those things at CitizenCon are coming in 4.0, and the year isn't over. And so there's been a lot of dooming on that, with very premature math and quotes taken out of context. And so we're going to, in this same manner, we're going to go over Naz's spreadsheet along with what we know is coming out, or not what we know is coming out, but what just released with 324 and what is on the release view for 320 or for 4.0, as well as what devs have said in recent ISCs and SCLs are also being targeted for 4.0, but don't necessarily have a release view deliverable, if that makes sense. In order to set expectations for what that percentage number might look like when 4.0 releases, when it's probably going to release closer to when CIG is actually targeting and not 2025 or 2025-6, which is what people are dooming. So let's listen to this quote. Citations in this economy.
Now that said, Alpha 4.0 is currently targeting a summer 2024 release, but that won't mean that you have to wait until then to play it or learn more about it.
So the last part of that quote didn't age well because the Pyro previews didn't pan out. But targeting a summer 2024 release. When is summer? What are the dates for summer, everyone? The dates for summer, and you can Google it. Summer starts June 20th, 2024, and goes until September 22nd, 2024. Essentially Q3. He said they're targeting Q3, targeting summer. So sometime in Q3 is when they're initially targeting, back in December of last year. So put a pin in that. And so the next timestamp essentially that we have is the April 17th Roadmap Roundup. And Naz, if you want to read the release view part, and we'll talk about why this is important in the greater context.
Absolutely, right after I find it. Where did you put that link? There it is. You said August 7th, 17th.
April 17th.
I'm looking. There it is. Make me open way too many tabs. All right, April 17th. You want me to read which one?
Yeah, the release view part.
Release view. All right. As part of our final review process, we've concluded that the quality of the cargo feature that we're targeting the launch of Alpha 323 were not yet at the stage where we needed them to be for a release to the live service. The freight elevator and instance hangars in particular are technologically complex features that will require a bit more work, pain, and suffering before we feel comfortable fully integrating them into the game. This additional time will allow the team to test for additional edge cases and include further refinement, which is especially important for features as impactful as these. However, we are not currently planning on shifting them back a full patch cycle. The features below will remain in the 323 column on the release view, but now targeting 323X.
Okay. So as of April 17th, and really they made this decision in the 2-week period prior to this, they knew that there was going to be an additional point patch after 323, and 323 released in early May, and then 323.1, and they knew this at this point. They knew that it was going to 323 was going to release in May, and that they're going to have a 323.1 for Invictus launch week, and so they knew that there was going to be a point patch after Invictus launch week, which was essentially the third week of May, the latter half of May. And so they knew they were going to have a point patch with these things that would need to be tested and released sometime in June. They knew this in April, and they didn't push back the release timeline for 4.0. So that tells you how much time that CIG was anticipating that they would need to get 4.0 through its testing cycle in order to release. In order to release in Q3. And then, so Roadmap Roundup, essentially a month later, May 15th, 2024, is when they added 4.0 to the release view, because this is after 323 launched to live. And before 324 was there, and so this was the next patch, so they added it to the release view, because they always add it to the release view when the preceding patch goes live now. So they reiterated on May 15th, targeting Q3 this year, knowing full well that there was going to be a full, what is now 324, but they knew that was going to happen in June, and they were still targeting Q3 for Alpha 4.0 as of May 15th. So this is when they added this to the release view, and they didn't change the target timeline. And then June 26th, a month, essentially almost a month and a half later, what happened? They committed everything that was on 323.2 to 324, changed the name, still hasn't released. It's in, still in Evo at this point. And it's still in Evo. This is at the very end of Q2, because June is the last month of quarter 2. So Q3 starts in July. And what is now 324 is still in Evo. And they didn't, in this Roadmap Roundup, they didn't push the release window back for 4.0. They could have if they thought that they needed more time, but they didn't. So again, the next Roadmap Roundup we got an entire month later. What happened? Naz, you want to?
You also have a video in between the two.
Oh yeah, actually, is it this one? Actually, I was the
jump points.
Oh, did I not open that? Whoops, my bad. Hold on.
It's your document.
Well, I'm not looking at the document. I'm just going through the tabs.
Yeah, no, I understand. You
You
wrote the thing. You wrote the script.
I did. Wait, where is it?
You want me to send you the timestamp?
Oh, there we go. Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Whoops.
Excuse us, everyone. We are experiencing technical difficulties. If you would just hang on for one moment.
Here we go. So let's see. This ISC was July 18th. So June 26th, 324 is in Evo. They've now committed the features to 324. They went from tentative to committed. They didn't move 4.0's release window at that point. So they were still thinking that they could release 4.0 within the 3-month window following this to still be in Q3. And then July 18th. So this ISC, if it was released in July 18th, it means that they recorded Jared's audio within the week or two prior, is usually how that goes. They get like the B-roll usually in during that month break after all the ISCs, but then they for each individual ISC is when they put it all together and they record Jared's lines, and so that way these aren't out of date. The what Jared says is usually only a week or so old when these are released. And so let's see what Jared says at July 18th.
So what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully a whole heck of a lot about the first jump point that's currently in development and scheduled to make its way into Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 in just the next few months. Yeah, I didn't say before the end of this year. We're still targeting something a bit sooner than that. And that's all I'm going to say.
We're still targeting something a bit sooner than that. In mid-July is when they made this statement. Not end of the year, a bit sooner than that. Okay, well, what's a bit sooner than that?
I mean, you could do as much tinfoil as you want, because like, I know you have things you're gonna say, but I'm just gonna add my 2 cents in.
Oh yeah,
like
no, that's why we're here.
The most pessimistic is IE is a bit before the end of the year. For anyone who's been in Star Citizen for more than 6 months knows you don't release new patches on events. Just don't do it. They're always bad. Just stop doing it. So before that you have CitizenCon, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Like that's you have and they've done, I forget which patch it was. It was all backers. I think this was the Microtech patch, the Carrick Microtech patch, where it was all backers at the end of CitizenCon and released by the end of the year.
Yeah. So they're targeting something a bit sooner than that, and that's all he's going to say. And he's doing that with a look in his face. That just says CitizenCon. All day, every day. And do I think that they're going to release it at CitizenCon? No, I think it's again, this is one of those things that's nebulous. It isn't a hard and fast date. It'll depend on how the testing goes. It might be before CitizenCon. It might be a couple of weeks after. But they're targeting around CitizenCon, but before IAE. And Naz and I talked about this before the show. In order to be able to get 4.0 out and then still have a week or two to get the 4.1 or the 4.0.1 patch ready for IAE, because IAE and Invictus launch week is always a .x or .1 patch of that patch, and it takes a week or so to test because it's just an event that they've run many times before.
Yes, very much so. We're gonna go over it later when we're going over the spreadsheet for CitizenCon. 12 months was not exactly said. That may have been a ramble line, but he did specifically include Q4 in the line of we hope to get all these things in the next X timeline. The timeline did continue to Q4. A lot of people
hold on, audio just screwed up.
Hello? My audio? Your audio? All the audio? Hello?
Why is my audio? No, sorry, in my headphones. My headphones got disconnected.
Well, just keep going then. So, a lot of people clung on to the 12 months, saying by the next CitizenCon we'll have all these features. Not the case. It may have been said, but it was not. It was in the 12 months or so kind of line. It was definitely very specifically. I believe the intro said something along the lines of next 12 months or so. In the outro, Chris Roberts' speech, he said
he's very
specifically
specific.
Q4.
Yeah. And in the beginning, he said, and we're going to talk about this in the next Spectrum Pulse because that's when we're going to go over Naz's sheet and stuff. But in the very beginning of CitizenCon, and I remember it vividly because I was there, and and he said a lot of what we're showing you, we are targeting to release within in the next 12 months or so, and I'm not making any promises.
Yep.
That was his like almost direct word for word verbiage. And yet with 324, and he said a lot, not all, but a lot. And as of with 324's release, we're at 40% of everything that was shown at CitizenCon, not including 4.0. And so with 4.0's edition, we get somewhere to 60 to 70% of everything that was shown at CitizenCon, if not more, depending on what things you count and what ends up squeaking in that doesn't have a release view deliverable.
I should
And
probably
so if
also
you
pull up that Spectrum post I made.
And so if he said a lot of what we're showing you in the next 12 months, and they give us nearly 70% of everything they showed, that's accurate. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Doomers, but that's really accurate. And all they have to do is get 4.0 out, around CitizenCon. And so that's why we're showing this, is because that seems to be what CIG is targeting. And I'm gonna be really obnoxious about this, because Naz and I are gonna have, if this all comes to pass, and shit can go sideways. Naz and I will be the first to admit that shit can go sideways. But what we're trying to show everybody is that this is what CIG is targeting, and this is what their plans are, and this is why they are confident in these plans, and why past performance and is not necessarily the data point to hang your hat on at this point, because the situations are different. They have changed a lot, and we're going to talk about that at the end of this segment, because the context is there, and it makes a difference. And so if CIG is targeting 4.0 for CitizenCon and 4.0 releases, and it gets us those numbers, not only will they have basically missed their release window for 4.0 by only a month. The most important patch, arguably the most important patch for Star Citizen to date, and they'll have missed their goal, their most recent prediction by only a month. That's
I would
really
even
good
venture
by
to say
CIG
there
standards.
won't be. Yeah, I'd venture to say there won't be another patch as important as 4.0.
Yeah.
Because even with sort of meshing Dynamic 1 and 2, it is building on the foundation of 4.0. And so those are more iterative processes. 4.0 is the turning point, the point when it stops being about laying the foundation.
Yeah, it really is, because dynamic server meshing is building upon that foundation. And it's the biggest part of the culmination of the last 5-6 years of work for CIG, which is just nuts. But then in the same year, release 4.0, it very close to what their stated goal was, and then for CR to say, make a statement at the beginning of CitizenCon, and then for it to pretty much pan out.
Yep,
that's unheard of. And
CIG predicts, or not CIG, but CR predicts something.
What? But it shows that they are improving. In their along with ship production and stuff, it shows that they are getting better at hitting their targets. Perfect? Absolutely not. But it shows improvement. It shows that they are making the effort. It shows that they are adapting and putting and taking the feedback and doing what's necessary to get better. And that's the stuff that really makes the Doomers sound really silly, because they act like it's the same as 2016. Because they'll say answer the call, and I'll be like, what about this? it's not answer the call anymore. I'm sorry,
Yeah, like
times have
a
changed. Yeah.
big part of a lot of the Doomer rhetoric is basically just flat out denying we're getting 4.0 this year.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it
yeah,
with like
no
zero
one,
basis and zero checks and balances. They just say, well, it's probably next year. It's probably like Q2 next year or whatever. Like it's a lot of the Doomer stuff I've heard is very much just straight up dismissing. It feels almost
it's
like
vibes
they're
based.
yeah, it's almost like it's a like a they can't handle CIG doing or Star Citizen doing well. And so when it's doing well, they have to like make up some drama in their head. That's what it sounds like to me hearing a lot of this. Well, it's obviously not coming out this year, or they're obviously going to miss their mark. It's obviously 6 to 12 months away.
There's no way I could
And
be wrong because I've been right before.
the
And I've been
and
right
the
before, and there's no way CIG could ever get better.
yeah,
You
they've
know,
been CG messed up once, and so they're going to mess up 1,000 times, or they're going to mess up now. And it just doesn't jive with what we're actually seeing in the monthly reports, in the
yeah,
Roadmap Roundup, on the progress tracker, in the comments on Spectrum, on Reddit, in the ISCs, in the SCLs, in CitizenCon last year, and you bet in CitizenCon this year. It just doesn't go with the evidence.
and
So it's
for CR to make a prediction, and not even a prediction, but for CR to make a statement that, hey, a lot of this stuff is what we're targeting, and I'm not making any promises, but our goal is to release this stuff to you in 12 months. All the caveats in the world, and people still say he promised and he lied. It's like, stop making shit up. It's, it won't kill you. But so getting back to the topic at hand, July 18th, the timeline. Jared, point blank, stares us in the face and says, we're targeting sooner than the end of the year. Yeah, and the Q4 patch always goes out at almost always goes out at the end of the year. And to me, this means that we're going to, it's going to be a change in the paradigm. If he says that it's before the end of the year, it doesn't mean it's going to be December, 9th instead of 22nd. It's a bit, something sooner than that, especially when you look at what the Progress Tracker target dates for all their things on the release view for Pyro. So let's see what's next. So a week later, Roadmap Roundup, July 24th. They add more things to the release view. Yeah,
the best
because of the Clipper.
Yeah, because the Zeus.
I might have to get
I
it.
mean, you got your asteroid bases, and I got my CL. So like,
yeah,
we both got something.
Yeah,
this. I'm now deeming this the Pathfinders update. So
yes,
we both got
definitely.
Our things.
When this came out of freaking nowhere, the whole oh gosh, this is like Jake coming out with the chair, from out of nowhere to whack me over the head with asteroid bases, which everybody who watches the show knows, as I've been fawning over that deliverable on the progress tracker with no updates on it and no, never showing us anything, and all of a sudden, boom, it's releasing in the next patch. And we're gonna give you a little bitty tease in ISC, and that's it.
Was it even known that we were getting an ISC by this point?
I don't remember.
I think the first time we heard of it, it may have been the week before.
Yeah, we hadn't gotten the ISC yet.
So, like, just to have like asteroid bases, what do you mean?
Yeah,
and then to like, oh no, next week's ISC is asteroid bases. I can't imagine the dumbfounded look on your face when you heard that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was what? Omega Black. I totally get when people want to protect themselves from being disappointed. Absolutely. If that's what you need to do, by all means. You don't need to shit on CIG to protect yourself and set your expectations a bit broader. Like why people can't separate the two, I don't know. But the people will say, no, there's no way it's not coming out. CIG, they have to lump it in the same statement. CIG lies, Chris Roberts lies, they're incompetent. and and that's my issue. If you can just say, you know what, I hope CIG makes their target, but if it slips, then I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to, if it comes out, great, and if not, I'm going to be okay. That's all you need to say.
There's
That's
a big
healthy expectation
difference.
management. What's not healthy is being a dick.
There's a big difference between I don't expect X amount of things by the end of the year. I don't expect this in 4.0. I don't expect 4.0 in X amount of time frame. And this is obviously not coming out, and CIG just doesn't meet their deadlines, and 2016 Answer the Call or Scam Citizen or what have you, whatever spewing anyone's doing. There's a big difference because there's a lot of people in my org, and I don't let a lot of negativity around me that are absolutely, I don't expect anything, and whatever comes of it comes of it. Like, that's healthy expectation managing. There's not any need to be negative about it. That's taking it the other way. And if that is their coping mechanism,
passive aggressiveness towards
they
CIG
may
is
need to
not
find
called for.
some more help with that. Help that we can't give.
Yeah.
I'm only a fictional therapist.
Yeah, the game should not be able to hurt you. There are plenty of things in real life that will actually hurt you and do you wrong, and organizations that do deserve that kind of criticism. But the people who are trying to make the game and are passionate
to make a piece of
about it,
entertainment,
no, don't do that. Just like you wouldn't talk shit about your waiter or the person making your food. Don't talk shit about the people who are trying to make art that they want to share with you. It's really not hard to not be a jerk. But yeah, so that's July 24th. Continuing on. Now, they didn't do a comm link, and I don't know why, but they did a Spectrum post on August 7th for that roadmap roundup. And I put this in here because Xylo posted it.
Because y'all broke Jake, apparently.
But Xylo made this post on August 7th. It's August 7th at this point. And we are down to, there's 2 months left when this was getting crafted, essentially. There's 2 months left in Q3. And they didn't push it to Q4 yet. That's important. Math. Yeah, there's 2 months left, and they didn't push it yet. And so they were, people are bringing that up, but they didn't make the change. I'm sure they were talking about it, but they didn't make the change yet. And so that gives you an idea of what CIG thinks in terms of a timeline of how much time they need to test 4.0 to get it to live.
Why is Spectrum so crappy?
I don't know. And I hate scrolling through this stuff, but I do it just to find the yellow bits.
There's
and I don't think there's
Can
any...
we have a yellow replies filter?
Pardon me. So I didn't mean to cough into the mic.
But like, even the reactions, I wish you could hide them. Like, it's so negative. I don't understand. Like,
so,
this is a roadmap update. Like, why the negativity?
Yeah, why do you need to be snarky? It's just not necessary. And it's a selfish thing because you're doing it to make yourself feel better by putting someone else down. You're being a bully towards someone who's trying to make a product for you. Like, after 8 years, why doesn't Spectrum have show? Yeah, that is a thing that.
Because the team that is working on Spectrum is working on the progress tracker, is working on the entire website, is also working on freaking server meshing. It's even though they acquired an entire
does a really
company.
Good job of putting the quote in. I wish all the other devs would do that, and Jake has mentioned it I know Jake has said that he mentions it to other devs. Hey, when you reply, if you can reply back with the context, because
Yeah.
like Macton said, when you click on the link, based off the like if the link
Posts.
goes into your Discord or something, and you click on the link, it just shows you the reply, it doesn't show you the context, and then you click to show all, and it's so hard to find the context, which makes this really hard because I'm looking for the dev responses, but I want to know what they're replying to. Yeah, and so I hope that's a feature that we eventually get that automatically does that, because it would make, because they know that we have all the Discord feeds and stuff that make it so that we get the notifications. Like, I go through and read almost every single dev reply that comes into my Discord, in order to make sure I don't miss any tidbits. Because unfortunately, a lot of good information gets put on a spectrum in just dev replies and doesn't ever see the light of day, that's one of my critiques.
I mean, I think that's more of a accidental thing because the devs know what they know because they're working on it then. And it takes a lot more coordination to make a post about it.
Yeah. I would like it if Nico could go through and provide a summary with links for the dev updates on Spectrum every week, or maybe even on a bi-weekly basis. Say, hey, there's this conversation.
Opposite the roadmap.
These devs replied. Go check out the replies in the comments.
Yeah, that honestly is a good idea. It does, like, they do technically have the dev tracker.
Yeah, they have the dev tracker sure.
That no one knows where it is anymore.
No one knows it exists except for the people that get the feed from it in their Discord, or the subreddit.
The only people who know where it is are the people that are the people. The only people who can find it, people who already know where it is.
Yeah, Dibley, we are asking a lot, and and Naz and I, we need to adjust our expectations. Yeah,
I only adjust them higher.
Yep.
I don't. So,
but that's
I don't know if it's every optimist that. I don't know if every optimist does this, but as far as I've observed, being an optimist, optimism is not about setting your expectations high and then being disappointed every time they fail. It's about setting them high and being able to expect greatness from everyone and everything, and then being okay and to be able to do it again after you get past whatever it is that happened, whether it was there, whether it was mid, or whether it was bad. It's not about being like so optimistic that you're shattered when your expectations don't come to fruition. As far as my experience being an optimist, is just constantly being optimistic and continuing to be optimistic, not being depressed when my optimism has led me down a dark alley.
I like my positive mental health. It makes me a much happier person. I like me when I'm happy, and so I choose to be optimistic.
Wow, shocking! Like being happy.
So last one. So it took up until the August 21st Roadmap Roundup, and so this was written, essentially the week before, which means the conversation regarding when 4.0 getting moved happened essentially the middle, like the second week, of August, shortly after this post was made. It occurred between August 7th and the 21st. And so when they essentially got to the 6 to 7 week mark of, we've got 6 to 7 weeks left in Q3, can we get 4.0 out if 324 goes live tomorrow? And they said, no, it's not enough time. So Naz, do you want to, we're circling back to you. Do you want to read the release view bit, and we'll talk about that?
Yeah, just reading. Very long comment. Sorry. Very long comment. I was wondering.
Oh, no, I'm reading it too now.
Okay. Be kind to the devs. Yes! Be kind. Freaking that's how I sign off every stream.
No, Dibley, we love it. We love the feedback. We love the interaction.
Yeah, no, don't never say sorry. If we're taking the time to read chat, that's on us. That's not on you guys. You guys are fine.
well,
Like,
and it's not. This isn't the Naz and Tree show. This is Naz and Tree having a conversation that includes all of you guys. We
we've
want to
already
hear
talked
from,
about this. This is
yeah.
now where we get to like see if we're crazy.
Mhm.
Asking you guys.
We're sharing this. We're sharing this information because we found it interesting, and we also want to hear your thoughts. But also, this is a team effort, and this is what Naz and I have found. So if you have found other things, we'll add it to the list.
Yep.
Especially if and that's why Naz and I are trying to come up with topics and stuff before and post them beforehand, so that way in the week or so preceding the episode, if you guys have ideas or have thoughts or have links or things that you think are relevant, ping the shit out of us on. Don't be a dick about it, but ping us on Discord and share it with the community, along with us.
I'm very
Because,
lonely. You can ping me all you want.
Yeah.
He's busy. You ping me all you want.
Yeah, Naz will give me the Cliff Notes version, but it's more information is better, and more information and more people sharing the information and talking about it from their different points of view is better, and that's part of why we do this, especially to counter people who are negative, because a lot of the times the negative people don't share the information; they just share their biased point of view, and it's like I want to give the people who are the people who are watching those negative people an alternative and be like, hey, you could hang out with us and learn about this stuff and potentially be happier about it, and maybe that'll make your day better. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Notable changes for August 21st, 2024. Progress tracker. We're excited to share an update to the
Just the
release view. Release view.
Yeah, we already relayed this part.
Yeah. Yeah, we circled all the way back around to this week. Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Took a whole trip there. Release view. We're finally finishing this last week's Roadmap Roundup. With this publish, we are adjusting the release window for 4.0 to Q4 2024. Alpha 324 and its update to systemic gameplay features had required extra attention to ensure necessary issues are resolved ahead of its release, which weren't all resolved and they're still working on it. Just keep that in mind. Which had resulted in a lengthier PTU process. While work has continued on 4.0 features and technology simultaneously, we are making this adjustment to release timing to ensure Alpha 4.0 gets the proper amount of time in testing or in PTU.
So that's the really important
I want to
part.
ask, yes, I want to ask both of Tree and of everyone in chat, all 25-ish of you, because Twitch never actually gives us the proper amount of people. Would me just straight up reading these for a video be valuable to you? I know Tree reads them probably 5 times before we even get talking about it. But is that something that I should just do because people don't like reading them and miss a lot of the words, especially somewhere in the middle? Like, is that something that would be of value? Would you be playing silly hats? I mean, that's not a possibility. I have to find like conditions for.
Would you be wearing silly hats?
Because something this short would have us expecting someone else to read it on a video. So my answer is no. Okay. Let's see who Paul listen to. Yeah, I should try it. And like the worse it does, it just doesn't get traction. Like, I guess there's no real harm in trying. But I'm just thinking like, no, squeaky clown nose, yeah.
Oh, well done.
But just like read it through. Like, hi, this is the roadmap for X amount. Read straight through, end video. I listened to it as you had your own commentary, as I like hearing others' perspective after I reached my initial conclusions on my first read. Okay. Well, you're also one of the crazy ones that actually read it, so
Yeah, I
I
do the
think what
exact same
I'll.
thing though, because I'll read the monthly report, and I'll usually read it 2, sometimes 3 times, and then
Mhm.
I'll listen to Paul read it, and I'll hear Super Mac Brothers recap, and Space Tomato usually goes over them as well, um,
So
and
I just need to start
Naz
throwing my
and
hat in.
well, and but then you and I also talk about things when it comes out
Hmm.
because we'll both have read it, and so that way I'm getting good coverage. It, because you even if I read it 2, sometimes 3 times, I'm gonna miss things or I'm gonna read things wrong because of my own eyeballs doing what my brain tells them to do, and interpreting things in a different way. And it happens all the time where I go back and reread something because Naz is like, no, it said this, or no, that's not what that meant. It meant this, and I read it again. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, when I look up
I'm
stuff
dumb.
on my streams, Blizzard, that's I am all over the place. Like I will do what I call live research and just basically find a question. If I don't know the question, know where to point the answer, it will be digging through stuff and it will be connecting all the dots. Insert uh not cloudy sun, always sunny in
Hmm.
somewhere meme where he's pointing at the walls.
But yeah, so coming back to the change, so 324 has been in PTU a long time, which means that 4.0 was not in PTU. Um, and because they can't, they're really not able to do simultaneous Evos and PTUs and stuff. It's just not something, it would divert from the testing focus of getting 324 out. And people have talked, I've seen multiple people mention, well, why didn't they just push those features to 4.0? Because they need them to work for 4.0. Everything that they're fixing, all the fixes they've done thus far, and the ones they're going to do in the near future for 324, will get added into the 320 or the 4.0 branch. Everything that's in 324 is in 4.0, and if we don't fix it now, it will still be broken when 4.0 releases or goes into testing. And so that's why they're continuing to test it, so that way these things are out of the way, and we're not still trying to fix 324 stuff when 4.0 goes to Evo and PTU, and that would distract from the testing focus of the 4.0 features in tech. But so and this is a distinction that Jared made. 320 or 4.0 does not, or 324 does not impact 4.0's development. The people working on 4.0 are different than the people working on 324. What it does impact is when 4.0 can go into testing. That's why things got moved, is because 324 took longer in testing. It doesn't change the amount of time that they think they need to test 4.0, which is what we're looking at. Okay, they think they need 2 months. They weren't going to get that and still be within Q3, so they pushed it back to Q4. And now, um, and so, but because they want to make sure 4.0 gets the proper amount of time in testing. Now, why is CIG confident in the amount of time that they need to test 4.0? And I don't want to pull up my calendar. I'll pull this up real quick. You can't really see it, but everybody look at your own calendar.
Yeah.
So Friday the 30th was yesterday. That means if we go like this, we can go from the 30th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 weeks from yesterday, or essentially 7 weeks from today until CitizenCon. And we have until CitizenCon, and then 1, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're 11 or 12. We don't know exactly what day IAE will start. Normally, IAE is starts the third Friday of November and goes until the beginning of December. But because the third Friday of November is the 15th, if it goes for 10 days, it would only go out to like the 26th. And so I think maybe it'll be the 22nd and go until the 3rd, because that's closer to more traditional dates. But either or, we're 3 months away from the start of IAE, which means if we go through 2 months worth of testing for CitizenCon to get Pyro or 4.0 out, that means it'll go live the third week, the week after CitizenCon, or maybe it goes live the week after that, or the week after that. We've got a 3 week long window after CitizenCon where if 4.0 goes live, and at this point we're at 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks of testing, and then you still have a week or two long period where they can work on the 4.0.x patch for IAE. And IAE is run a million times. And it always takes about a week or so to get that patch through PTU, and it still has issues and stuff. But if 4.0 is in PTU by CitizenCon, it can easily release with enough time between CitizenCon and IAE to get that .x patch. And we're looking at over 2 months of testing for 4.0. So why might CIG be confident in having that much time of testing? And it was like, oh, it's server meshing. It's gonna take, PES took over 6 months and it still released broken. Okay, not the same situation, and CIG has told us why. And so there's more than one mention, but the two biggest parts of why this is not the same are there's actually several pieces, but the first one, and this was the letter from the chairman from May 2022, and down here under the Road to 4.0 part, it says for PES to work, both the entity graph and the replication layer need to be functional. Remember, the replication layer released with PES, but it was still on the server. And now we have the replication layer separation from the server. In terms of engineering, this was the biggest technical challenge and required a fundamental reworking of how the game handles authority and state change of entities. In addition, so they said right here, this is the biggest technical challenge. PES is the far larger technical challenge compared to server meshing, especially static server meshing. Now, if you lump static server meshing and dynamic server meshing in, it gets a little bit closer. But PES was the far bigger leap and far bigger hurdle than server meshing. And yeah, it took a long time and it released broken, but again, they've learned from that, and we'll read about that. But to support PES, we needed to create 12 new services. 12 new backend services for PES to work. For server meshing, only 4 more services are currently planned. And one of the biggest reasons that PES failed is because you had this multiplicative factor of 12 new services all coming together at the same time with the launch of PES. And so you have far more ways in which something can fail, and it makes it far more difficult for them to track the root cause because of all these new services. Server meshing has less new services, and static server meshing even fewer. This is 4 new services for dynamic. So static server meshing is far simpler comparatively. So it's a much simpler endeavor to launch 4.0 than it is to launch 3.18. And the other issue was 3.18, PES was built in less than 18 months from when they realized that iCache was not going to work. They reinvented the wheel for all of their persistence tech in 18 months. And so, of course, PES, was going to release broken. They have not reinvented the wheel on anything for server meshing. The plan for persistence got updated, but server meshing, the fundamental aspects of server meshing, how it works, has not changed and has been continuously developed for years. So it's had far more time to cook and be tested and iterated on, and a lot more research and development. So in the post-mortem for 318 and 319, and sorry, I'm going to bogart these parts. What will do better? Future plans. Nobody fucking read this shit. Nobody read it. And that's why everybody is like, it's going to be 318 all over again. No, it's not. Because they learned from 318 and they told us what they're going to do differently. And they have since done that. So going forward, we'll finalize and use the cloud test launcher. Now, this has not come to fruition that we know of. But they also haven't told us an awful lot of the nitty gritty. But
Is the cloud test launcher an internal tool?
It's an internal tool that lets them use a whole bunch of cloud headless clients to simulate a bunch of players and player behaviors in order to simulate all the entity state changes of people moving back and forth from one server to another, and doing all these transitions.
Yeah, so we wouldn't even know if they did.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew,
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
A55 fat, ass fat. Thank you so much for the follow. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Headless client sounds like the dual universe test a while back before that game essentially died. Woohoo.
Okay, so headless client is not a new thing. It's not a dual universe thing, not a Star Citizen thing. It is a very old kind of tech, much like server meshing is a very old kind of tech, much like rasterization is a very old tech. Headless client basically means a non-graphical AI that can mimic actions of the player. Yep. For anyone who has any amount of server running, if you've run like a Minecraft server or whatnot, there's two ways to launch the server. There's with the GUI and without. Much like there's a way to connect a server or a client to the server, there's with the GUI and without. A headless client is without the GUI. And so they'll just run these NPCs basically on these conditions. And because it's headless, because it doesn't have a lot of headless overhead, in how they run, they're able to run thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of them to really hammer on whatever they're trying to specifically test.
Yeah.
So yes, dual universe also use headless clients.
Mm-hmm. And the reason this is important is because they wanted to get the cloud test launcher up and working for PES, but they couldn't. And that's part of why they had to kick PES out the door, because they could only get so much scale testing in PTU. And that's where it failed, was at scale. Well, with the cloud test launcher, they can virtualize the scale of not only launching a server meshing shard with, say, 600 headless clients attached to it and 4 servers. They can do that, and then they can launch 100 more of them, 1,000 more of them, in order to simulate what the strain on their back end would be like when 4.0 goes live and 100,000 people log in no time flat. Because that's where PES died.
Since 318, and specifically in 324, there is a noticeable lack of slowdown when the server's full, when there's a lot going on as far as ship count.
Yep.
There was Blockade Runner running around the station that I was in. I had no idea until I left the hangar and realized there's a lot of fighting around me. It is shocking. And AI in 324 are running really stupid well, and I basically can't do FPS at the moment. I'm too bad at it. I'm too used to it being completely complacent.
It's a whole new paradigm.
It is. The server performance is really good. Is there lots of debilitating bugs? Absolutely. But server performance-wise, it's amazing.
Yeah, they've been able to harden the replication layer separation. Because they're now this far out from when it was first launched with 323. But I think, and this is speculation, but this was their intent, but I think that the cloud test launcher is in play now. Now, whether it was in play before we did the tech previews of server meshing or not, I don't know. But I think that the cloud test launcher is now in play, and that's why they're confident that they will be able to they won't have as many issues going through testing as before, because they've tested so many of these pain points when it comes to concurrency. Now, it doesn't allow them to test bugs, and report bugs or anything like that. But this is just a concurrency test thing that allows them to harden their back end and find out where the pain points are in terms of the connections between the servers and the replication layer and the replication layer and the other backend, all the other backend services. Because those are the things that make the game crash, that make the game really unplayable. And so I think that that's why this is in play. Now, do we have confirmation? No. Are we going to get confirmation? Not until after 4.0 launches. We won't know until they do this again for 4.0. But by utilizing cloud computing resources, effective stress testing can be conducted, which will help identify and address issues relating to heavily loaded servers before moving to live. The team responsible for PES has now moved on to static server meshing and are embracing a transformation approach to the new project. Unlike PES, this foundational technology can be integrated into the codebase gradually. They're talking about those services. Whereas there's 12 of them with PES and 4 new ones for server meshing. Well, they had to integrate all of those 12 new services in the PS in one go, which is why they had so many points of failure. Well, that's why we have separation of the replication layer. That's why we have had crash recovery, because those are things that needed to be added in, and they were able to add them in and test them gradually rather than lumping them all into 4.0, because that would have made the testing process for 4.0 much worse. And so they're able to avoid the big bang approach like we had with PES. That's why thinking that this will be like PES is so erroneous, because they learned from PES and they have adapted and they've done things differently and they've demonstrated that. And they've told us what the plan is and they've stuck to it and it's worked. Has it worked perfectly? No. It took longer to get replication layer separation out, but they got it out and it works. And it's functioning. Crash recovery works and it's functioning.
Really well.
Yeah. Parts of the server meshing tech are already available to the game team for testing compatibility, blah, blah, blah. Combined with the Cloud Test Launcher, this approach aims to facilitate a smoother integration process for server meshing. Gee, why might CIG have been more confident in their timeline of only a couple months? Oh, I don't know. Because they have a plan, and the plan has worked thus far, and they have new tools and new processes, and they learned from what went wrong. We should be celebrating CIG improving and doing things differently, and not dogging on them for saying, we can't get it done in 6 weeks. We still want to have at least 2 months. Don't shit on them for that. They want to put this to the test. We should be, saying, okay, thanks for, not trying to rush it out. And people are like, oh, it's still going to be rushed. It's like the part of the rush is you can't adequately test 4.0 in PTU, because server meshing is a thing that needs to be tested with high concurrency and at scale. And even though they can use the Cloud Test Launcher, they can only the headless clients can only do so much to simulate player behavior. All they're going to do is move back and forth across server boundaries between servers, in large enough numbers with a large enough entity counts in terms of like simulated ships and stuff, in order to stress the server. But they can't, perfectly model the shenanigans that players do. And so that's
or even the interaction that they do.
Yeah.
Like they had with clients, there is a limit to the interaction that they can have in the world.
Yeah, and they can't give feedback on what the delays and the pain points look like in terms of what our client side performance, our client perspective as a player would be. So they can remove a lot of the pain points and they can shorten things significantly, and they can have more confidence in their ability to do things, but they still need to get 4.0 out to scale. And so they're not going to leave 4.0 in limbo, for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and burn out testers, because they know they're not going to get. We have learned this. We learned with 3.18 that players get bored, and even though it's 4.0, they're gonna get bored, and they're gonna want it to go to live because they want the game to persist and for them to get progress, and so they're not going to get the concurrency, and so it's going to get to a point, and then they're going to kick it out, and they think that they can get to that.
They did with
324 for better or worse. And is 324 perfect? No, but does it have issues? Yep. But if they do that in 2 months, 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, they still have several weeks after that to get, fixes in advance for IAE. And so I don't think that they're going to drag it through during IAE when people are distracted by IAE and not doing good testing and providing them good feedback and good data just for a December launch. That would be counterintuitive to the testing process for 4.0 and the data that they need for it to actually release and for them to get, take what they get from release and improve upon it. By implementing these measures, we aim to enhance our testing capabilities and mitigate integration challenges, ensuring smoother delivery of foundational technologies while minimizing disruption to the game, which is what has occurred with the replication layer separation and crash recovery. So, only a couple more, and then we'll be able to call it a night. I dragging it out to December would be counterintuitive. It would negatively impact 4.0's testing and the data they need.
Yeah, and way back when they initiated the Q1, 2, 3, 4 patches, they made it very, very obvious. Very words are escaping me. They made it known that because they're releasing in QX does not mean they're releasing on month A, B, or C, week A, B, C, Y. It is just the range at which they want to put it out. Because our 4.0 is in Q4, it is anywhere within Q4. Because of how much testing they're able to get, they would like to elongate it as much as possible to get that PTU testing, to get that focus testing a lot more. If they don't need that, or if they need higher player counts, there's no need to keep it in PTU, so they put it on live, like Tree's been saying. It's only a range of time that the Q4 target is only what needs to happen for the testing, for the live build, for whatever gates that CIG has internally that will stop 4.0 from getting out, the first day of Q4.
Yeah, and really this hinges on how soon do we see a 4.0 in Evo. Now, because 4.0 has been continued to be in development, and
it's Monday, right?
Yeah, but because all the throughout 324's testing cycle, 4.0 has been in development. It's getting more and more development, more and more internal QA testing to refine these things, and so I think we're probably going to get an Evo build very soon. But this really does hinge on, do we get Evo soon or not? And I think because they've had more time, to work on 4.0 internally, I think we're probably pretty close to Evo, and but it just remains to be seen. But we can still easily get 8 to 10 weeks of solid Evo to PTU testing, which is more than what 324 took. And it is still a very long, that's still that's a very long Evo PTU cycle. For a standard patch, it's generally a lot less. That's double what a standard cycle is. Have we had lots of standard cycles because of this, the last year or two of foundational tech? No. But traditionally, without a big old piece of foundational tech, you're looking at, 4 to 6 weeks, and we're looking, at an entire month longer than that. So I think it's still very doable, and given that the IAE bit right there, I don't think leaving it in PTU longer and running concurrent PTUs and then a concurrent live patch with IAE, I think that would not help 4.0 testing, and I think it would just burn out backers, and I think we're more likely to get 4.0 is going to have issues. And there are issues that we're not going to find until we get to live. But with these tools and this approach, it should, in theory, be a much better experience than than 318, a far better experience. And 324 is an outlier. They could not have predicted these weird connection things, but it's because it's a lot of back end changes to how things work, where 4.0 and server meshing is not the level of back end changes that you think it is. It's handing off entity authority and entity state changes, and just handing them off from one server to another. That's why there's not all these new services, because it's not it's not as complex a problem as people make it out to be. It gets more complex when we get to dynamic. That's a bigger deal. But by then they'll already have the data from static server meshing. So it won't be, it's a step, a middle of the road step. So again, why else might CIG be this confident? Well, ISC July 4th, 2024, which means, these guys were filmed and stuff, in the couple weeks prior to that.
Saying surprisingly well. Were you expecting this to just fall on its face?
Yes, I've been working in games a long time, and for things to work first time is very unusual. So yeah, I was fully expecting something to explode and for us to have to patch something up.
A little bit of anxiety, I feel, with teams that we never tried anything quite like this before, and the tech might not actually cope with it, and then we might have to cancel the test. Things, thankfully, went really, really, really well. Generally speaking, when we tested server meshing stuff out, it's tended to behave better than people expected at the time. So yeah, we've kind of gotten lucky with some of this stuff.
So CIG's own admission, and players reported it across the board when they did the tech preview test for server meshing, is that it went really well. And it worked. And it was functioning, and there's little hiccups here and there, and a lot of it is just due to the fact that they were running it on a 322 build, and they didn't have the new mission refactor, and they didn't have the transit system refactor in there. So certain things broke because they hadn't refactored them, but the game didn't crash much, and when it did crash, it recovered really well. There was some pain points with server transitions, but it was more of a initially, but after the server smoothed out, and so there was a lot of really good reporting on this, and it went really well because they've done things differently, because they've been able to test this internally, and because it's not this just absolute monumental panacea that people make it out overestimate it to be. So again, a month before they pushed it back, they're saying, hey, this went really well. There's a lot better than we expected. That's a good indicator. And people just must have completely blanked on this and said, oh no, server meshing testing is going to take, 3-6 quarters, and we're not going to get it until Q2 2025. What? Okay. There's no reason to believe that. Now, the one caveat to all of this, and the thing that's making a lot of people say, oh, we were right, and it's like, what? Hold on. It doesn't mean what you think it means. You keep using these words, and I do not think they mean what you say they mean. Someone asked, are we going to get a 324.x patch? And Niku, who is one of the community managers, said, we are currently working on multiple hotfixes for the live environment, intending to roll these out by this weekend. There will also be multiple 324.x patches, both with content, bug fixes, and quality of life improvements. We appreciate your patience while we're steaming these out. So, CitizenCon, there's always a .x patch. If 4.0 is still in PTU at CitizenCon, which I think it will be, I think we'll still be in PTU with a couple weeks of testing left to go, they'll roll out a 324.x patch for the new ships. Right now, whatchamacallit, the event.
No.
The new blockade
Doesn't
runner.
show? Oh, Blockade Runner. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Blockade Runner is not running, and they may run a .x patch for Blockade Runner if they release a ship over the next month. I think there's an in-game event in September. I don't remember what it would be, but I thought there was. If there's an in-game event where there's paints and maybe a new ship, because there's ships on the progress tracker, all these things could lead to a .x patch, which would add the content along with fixes that they're working on and quality of life improvements. Hey, Execute. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. Timber, I'm back. Tree is back. So people have taken this to mean that 324 is going to be the patch that we get into IAE, because IAE is always a .x patch. And that the .x patches will be CitizenCon and IAE. And I think it's the .x patches that we're going to get for
Pirate
events, for CitizenCon, for Pirate Week, and we're going to get 4.0, in PTU before CitizenCon, if not shortly thereafter, and 2 live in time for them to get another .x, a 4.0 .x patch, in the week or two prior to IAE launching. Just because they're going to want it to go to live, and they're going to need the data in order to get ready for IAE. But that still gives them 8 to 10 weeks of testing if they get into Evo, sooner rather than later. But I think that they're probably very close to getting it into Evo. And the sooner they get into Evos, the sooner they can, because really Evo is not there for concurrency testing. They're there to test features, bugs on features. He also told me he's not going to swim qual because he could not breathe underwater. Okay. So yeah, I think that there are some assumptions about this that need clarification. I don't think we're going to get it, but I think assuming that this is going to drag out past IAE is probably inaccurate based off of the timeline that they've been predicting the entire way through, the repeated statements, and confidence aspects, and the fact that if this runs through IAE, it's going to negatively impact 4.0. It won't help. It'll only hurt. We've seen that the longer things are in PTU, the less effective the testing gets. And they don't need to burn out Evo any more than they already have. And so I made a little graphic just to help conceptualize this for people to understand what this looks like and why things shouldn't just magically shift 6 months or grow to 6-9 months long. So this was their original timeline. And whether this was 323.2 or 324 doesn't matter. This was the plan. And so they knew back in April that 323 was going to go live in early May, and that 323.2, 324 would go into testing, and they were hoping to be faster, but that would happen in June. And so they are anticipating a testing period of 3 months or less, because it's Q3. And we've seen that as things for 324 continue to march out to here, they didn't move this endpoint until it got to here, right here. And that's when they are like, yeah, we can't make this. And so suddenly, here we are, about here. All the deliverables are showing out to about here. They tell us, before the end of the year, the server meshing went really well. And so they were looking at, 2 months or so, and we're here. And that means we have a month, 2 months. And IAE doesn't start until here, essentially 2/3 into November. So we have this pretty sizable window where server meshing and 4.0 can get 2+ months worth of PTO, Evo and PTU testing to then go to live, to then have 2 weeks or so to get a point X patch, which is they usually only get a week for IAE. So here's the new window that they said, but in reality, this is the testing window right here for a launch in between here and here. At least based off what I'm thinking. Even though 4.0 says Q4, they said before, I didn't say end of Q4. I said a bit sooner than that, and that's all I'm going to say. And everything's looking like right here. Yeah. How do I translate that? Or so, yeah. And I probably should have made another one of these calendars to show what I think the testing window is going to look like with a release thing, but I was struggling with Google Slides, so this is what I came up with. Ooh, ew, colors. So I'm going to collapse this, but then real quick, whoops. Oh, did that refresh all that? Please tell me. Okay, it didn't do all that. So, like I said before, I opened up the deliverables for everything that's slated for 4.0 or likely to be slated for 4.0 based off of, when this ends and the fact that it says release for 4.0. So we'll just go through these real quick because these match up with the release view, and you can verify all this for yourself. It's in, but additional player customization, end of October, beginning of November, 4.0. Rough and Ready faction outfits, October. Headhunters faction outfits, end of September, beginning of October. That's usually what this little overlap thing means. Frontier clothing, beginning of October. That's character art. Locations. Oh, it did that to the first one of every single one. That's so weird. Acidic caves. What?
If you scroll back on the timeline.
Oh, okay.
There's a little. No, if you move the bar, the sprint off the screen, a little button will appear.
Oh, that guy. There you go.
Yeah.
So, acidic caves. Doesn't show them going out to here. And again, this was put in the same day that they pushed 4.0 back. Hey, Rowderhead, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. That's okay. You can check out the VOD or you can check it out on YouTube. I don't think I'll have it up tomorrow, but I should have it up on Monday. Asteroid facilities, my favorite. Here we are. Contested zones. Pyrospace stations. Now, these sprints could get elongated, but considering they just added them to the progress tracker 10 days ago, if they were meant to be longer, wouldn't they have made them longer? I don't know. But 4.0, here we are, October. Homesteads, end of October. Jump points, into October. Now, are we supposed to use this to predict the release? No. But given the timing of when these things were added to the progress tracker, the same freaking day that they pushed back 4.0, I feel like the correlation is a bit stronger than it normally would be. Call me crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, Naz?
I think it all makes sense so far.
Yeah. Space cows, omelet, steak and eggs. Here we are. Where's the... See, and Fire Hazard didn't even get updated. But here it is. The repair missions, which are targeting 4.0. Where's this one? Solar Burst, which I don't see any sprints on here. And so I think that must have just been like a typo or something.
Done.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks somewhere, but I don't know where it is. But targeting 4.0. Life support. Here we are. Engineering. Here we are. Item overheat. Again. Vehicle radar and scanning. I put this in here not because there's no thing on it on the release view for it, but because the sprint goes out to the same place as so many others. I think that it either will get a deliverable on the release view, or it might and just be part of the 4.0 release. Vehicles. So let's see, where'd it go?
Get your arrow. It's forward.
There it is. Thank you. October again for the Zeus. The other Zeus. Here we are. The MFD rework. Part of I think this one has a deliverable, but for some reason it doesn't have the thing that says 4.0. But here it is. And so I have to think if they were targeting an end of the year release for 4.0, that these deliverables would have their sprints that just got added going out to the end of the year. You know, I think it would be a little bit more it would be less nebulous if that's what they're going off of. Fire extinguisher, charge and drain. And Cortex.
If you crashed, if you crashed and you were able to get back in with the mission, it means your client crashed, not the server, and that is not a facet of the crash recovery system.
Yep.
If you see a crash recovery, you'll very much be able to know because it will show a panel in the middle of your screen saying unresponsive or resyncing, or not resyncing. That's a desync. But wait a little while for the server to reboot, kind of thing. Yeah, if you were able to log back in straight into your random position wherever you were with a mission, missions are currently, this is a very much 4.0 thing, but currently missions will reset and be gotten rid of if a server goes down. And it's not till 4.0 that we get the ability to take missions off server.
Yeah, it becomes its own back-end service that will communicate with the servers, and that way they will persist when you go offline. They'll persist when you crash. They'll persist when the server crashes. The whole shebang. The server the mission will track with you as you transition from server to server. So that way, if you have to cross from one server to another or go from Stanton to Pyro on a mission, you still keep the server. Because that was one thing that didn't work in the tech previews.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But here's that mission.
You can actually force a client crash by alt-F4ing. Same function. You'll be able to load back into the game standing exactly where you were.
Yep. And the last thing, Cortex, there isn't a transit system refactor deliverable, but the mission system refactor right here, targeting 4.0, here it is, ending in October. So I feel it, and I think Naz is probably on the same shitty music. I feel like the evidence for an earlier rather than later Q4 release of 4.0 is, I feel like the evidence is far stronger.
I highly expect a Evo build this next week.
Yeah. I expect and I hope, but I'm happy to be wrong. If things don't work out, then it is what it is. But I'm more concerned and more interested in what is CIG's plan and what are they targeting and why, than I am for what the actual end outcome is. Because there are variables that we can't account for that CIG can't account for, but at the same time we talked about this, they have done their best to account for those variables and to improve and reduce the inaccuracies of their own predictions and stuff. Sounds like Citizen Gun plans drop back to IAE to me. I think that the release, it will be in PTU by CitizenCon and release shortly thereafter, in order to get a week or two, and it shouldn't take 2 weeks, because usually the .x for IAE and launch week, Invictus launch week, is a week of PTU. And so Yeah, and so at most it's 2 weeks, but I think IAE is going to be starting on the 22nd of November instead of the 15th, but either way, if we go to Evo this week, there's a full 8 to 10 weeks of testing that they can get in between Evo and PTU to go to live to still give them a whole week, or if not 2 weeks, to test a .x for IAE after it goes to live. So I'm happy to be wrong. I prefer to be optimistic, and I prefer to follow the evidence and what information we have available rather than, well, PES took 6 months. And it's like, well, we just explained why that's different. And CIG has explained why that's different. It's important to, and this is a thing, and this is part of the reason, like, there's a disconnect between me and other backers, because a big part of my civilian job is evaluating evidence, clinical evidence, for providing recommendations for practitioners to update their practice and continue to do evidence-based practice. And so it's you continue to essentially update that expectation as new evidence comes along, and as newer and subsequently more often higher quality evidence comes along, the older evidence becomes less relevant and carries less weight. And that's the difference between Naz and I, and what, and where we're going through all this information that we've compiled, and what a lot of the older backers who are doomers are saying, because the only evidence that they take into account is what happened with 318, Answer the Call 2016, Pyro 2020. That's the evidence that they use. It's out of date. It lacks context. And we have more current evidence with better context. And so when it comes to making an argument, college rhetoric, this is how you make an argument. This is how you state a position and you defend it, not Answer the Call 2020, So, I am a Zeus MR as well. The Zeus MR would be fun, but I hate the idea of getting another bounty hunting ship with no functionality except for combat.
I mean, the MR's not on the map right now.
I know, and that's why I'm not salty about it not being on the map, is because if they focused on it, I would be upset. I'd be like, that's resources that could go to a ship that would have its functionality.
I'd love to see the ST though.
Oh, is that the rumored one that they never?
The one that was in the original.
The 4-ship concept art, right? Yeah. Because there was that one image that had 4 of them. Yeah.
And I would love to take that around Snake Pit a few times.
Yep.
I wonder what the back end would do. Like what's in the back. And I wonder if the back would be a racer repair, like what's it? Cyclone, like a racer cyclone repair bay.
I don't know. I don't know what they do to make a 3-person ship a racer.
Well, there's racers all the way up the chain. Like all the way up to large hulling ships, there's still racers.
Yeah, but I just don't know how they differentiate it other than, I don't know.
Faster in a straight line or faster maneuverability.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to call it a night here pretty soon, too. Thanks for coming and hanging out, Execute. Good to see you, buddy. I'm glad. Say hey to Algrid next time you talk to him for me. Haven't had a chance. I've been so swamped, I haven't had a chance to keep up with info runners, and I'm always lurking anyway. But good to see you, homie. I think that's everything. Naz, did you have any closing comments? Any other thoughts?
Did you want to quickly run through the spreadsheet? You said you wanted to do that.
Oh, I was gonna save that for
okay.
Doomer Citizen Part 2, the remix.
Got it. Okay, I thought you were meant to do it today. I had all the stuff.
No.
Oh, I mean, good. Okay.
No, sorry, I should have communicated that better. But what we just did, but for the features.
Got
of the 12 months of CitizenCon features.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And so we're
All right.
so and that's that's actually a good idea though, is so we just did this for 4.0 and managing expectations for 4.0's testing and potential release. And maybe it goes all the way to December, maybe it doesn't, but we've just stated why we think what we do and what evidence supports it. But Naz has a really great resource, and actually, if you want to drop the link for people to look at on their own. So Naz, there's another community resource, but I like Naz's because it's a bit more comprehensive. But Naz created a sheet that tracks all the things that were shown off at CitizenCon, what's been released thus far, as well as what's on the schedule for 4.0, and what percentage that is of everything that was talked about at CitizenCon. And again, like we talked about before, CR said at the beginning of CitizenCon, a lot of what you're going to see, we are targeting, to release to live essentially in the next 12 months. I'm not making any promises, but that's our goal. And he said a lot of. So we're going.
Long link.
Oops. And so what Naz and I are going to do is we're going to circle back, and rewatch
There we go.
the most recent SCLs and ISCs from the last couple months, because there's been a lot of hidden dev mentions of things that they are targeting to launch, to release in 4.0 that don't necessarily get a deliverable like this on the release view, but are things that were shown off at CitizenCon that are on Naz's list. And so that way we can, using Naz's list, come up with a more accurate estimate of where we will be at that 12-month mark that CR talked about, in relation to him saying a lot of, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Get out the,
And then
the red
for
string.
those
caffeine.
who are
Yeah.
looking at it, there's another link, which is a Spectrum post I made. And that is a culmination of all of the deliverables on the spreadsheet that don't have any timeline attached to them. We saw them at CitizenCon, but we don't know where they currently are.
Mm-hmm.
They have not showed up on any patch release view there. I imagine a lot of these are what would have been the 4.1 patch.
Yeah. Oh, and things that,
that would have
don't
been
fall in
Q4.
under the a lot of, if a lot of what they're showing is 75%, what falls into this 25% that isn't going to make it in, isn't what they're targeting for 12 months. The obvious being base building and crafting, but what else is in there?
Yeah.
So base building, crafting, and then the new quantum travel experience, which that gives me more sads than anything, because quantum travel, even with the updated star map, still has issues, and I'm looking forward to being able to quantum boost. That's what I want more than anything, is to be able to boost around and not have to pick something on a map to necessarily go there, to be able to just go.
Yep. But you guys can definitely bookmark it, and it'll continue to get updated with as much stuff as it can.
Yeah.
And as 4.0 gets released, I will be putting what is in the game into making this more accurate.